In September 2021, Colombian authorities at Bogotá's El Dorado airport made a disturbing discovery: 3,500 shark fins packed in cardboard boxes and hidden among fish bladders. The shipment, bound for Hong Kong, was a clear violation of Colombia's recent ban on shark fishing and trade. Investigators estimated that nearly 1,000 sharks had been slaughtered to collect this massive haul. But as authorities dug deeper, they uncovered an even bigger scandal. The shipment led to a company owned by Fernando Rodríguez Mondragón, the son of Gilberto Rodríguez Orejuela, the infamous leader of the Cali Cartel. The involvement of a high-profile figure from one of history's most powerful drug trafficking dynasties raised unsettling questions. Was this just a case of illegal wildlife trade, or was something far more complex at play? Stay with us as we break down the full story. And if you enjoy deep investigative content, make sure to subscribe. The shark fin trade is a billion-dollar industry, driven by demand in Asia, where the fins are used to make expensive soups that can cost up to $200 a bowl. Colombia's Pacific coast, particularly the ports of Buenaventura and Tumaco, has long been a hotspot for illegal trade. Despite international regulations and conservation efforts, the practice continues, largely fueled by organized crime. The fins seized in Bogotá were traced back to these regions, confirming suspicions that the country's shark population was still being heavily exploited despite the ban. However, this was no ordinary wildlife smuggling case. The presence of a company linked to the son of a former drug kingpin suggested that the operation was not just about selling shark fins. It was about money laundering, corruption, and a criminal network operating far beyond what was immediately visible. Authorities tracked the shipment's route, and the details were telling. It originated in Maicao, a city near the Venezuelan border, before stopping in Roldanillo, where Rodríguez Mondragón's company, Comercializadora Fernapes S.A.S., was registered. This location was puzzling. Roldanillo is a small inland town, more than 3 hours from the Pacific Ocean. What was a seafood export company doing so far from any major fishing port? Further investigation revealed that Fernapes had been operating quietly in a residential area, with no visible signs of large-scale business activity. Neighbors recalled a constant, pungent smell of fish coming from the house, yet they never saw local workers. Instead, they noticed 2 Chinese men who seemed to be in charge of operations. This raised even more red flags. When confronted, Rodríguez Mondragón denied any involvement, claiming that a Chinese employee of his company had acted without his knowledge. He insisted that while he was recovering from COVID-19, this employee took advantage of his absence to process and export the shipment illegally. To support his claim, he provided surveillance footage showing 2 unidentified men handling shark fins at his facility. But the footage lacked context, and authorities weren't convinced. The Chinese employee in question could not be located, and no further evidence surfaced to support Rodríguez Mondragón's version of events. This wasn't the first time Rodríguez Mondragón had found himself entangled in illegal activity. As the son of Gilberto Rodríguez Orejuela, he had lived under the shadow of the Cali Cartel his entire life. His father and uncle, Miguel Rodríguez Orejuela, had built one of the most powerful drug trafficking empires in the world, controlling 80% of the cocaine market during the 1980s and 1990s. The cartel operated with military precision, infiltrating law enforcement, bribing politicians, and even manipulating Colombia's government at the highest levels. Unlike the Medellin cartel, which relied on violence, the Cali Cartel preferred a quieter, more sophisticated approach, but their empire eventually crumbled. In 2006, both Gilberto and Miguel were extradited to the United States, where they pleaded guilty to conspiracy to launder drug money. Fernando Rodríguez Mondragón tried to carve out his own path, but his family name followed him everywhere. In 2002, he was arrested in Bogotá after heroin was found in his apartment. He was convicted and served just over 2 years before being released on conditional suspension. He later moved to Roldanillo and established Fernapes in 2017. Officially, the company was involved in the wholesale trade of agricultural raw materials and live animals. But now, With the seizure of 3,500 shark fins linked to his business, investigators began questioning whether this was simply a front for something more sinister. Authorities soon uncovered another layer to the case. The fish bladders that had been used to conceal the shark fins also raised legal issues. While trading fish bladders isn't inherently illegal, strict regulations require permits for their export. The documentation provided for this shipment had expired, and even when valid, it only permitted domestic trade within Colombia. This meant that Fernapez had been operating outside the law on multiple fronts. Rodríguez Mondragón dismissed the allegations, arguing that fish bladders were waste products that didn't require special authorization. But legal experts disagreed, stating that because they hold significant market value, especially in China, where they are used in traditional medicine, a permit was necessary. Investigators then turned their attention to the shipment's destination. The shark fins and fish bladders were headed to Hong Kong, where they would be received by a company called Hose Import and Export Limited. Customs data revealed that between 2019 and 2021, Fernapez had shipped at least 53 cargoes to this company, with 36 of them each declared at an identical value of $30,000. This pattern was suspicious. Export values typically fluctuate based on weight, quality, and demand. Yet these shipments had a near-perfect consistency in their declared worth. Experts noted that such uniformity in financial records often signals customs fraud or money laundering. Journalists visiting Hose Import and Export Limited address in Hong Kong found an abandoned office in a remote industrial district. Neighboring businesses reported that the office was rarely open and no employees could be found. The company did not respond to any inquiries, deepening suspicions about its true operations. The more authorities uncovered, the clearer it became that this was not a simple case of illegal fishing. It was a well-organized smuggling network with international ties. Another alarming revelation came from the nature of the shark fins themselves. Typically, illegal shark fin shipments intercepted in Colombia are raw, requiring further processing in Asia before they reach the market. But the fins in this shipment had already been processed. Experts were stunned. Processing shark fins involves chemical treatments and precise techniques, knowledge that had, until recently, been exclusive to China. The presence of processed fins in Colombia suggested that smugglers had started bringing in expertise from Asia, allowing them to increase profits by selling the product at a higher market value. Biologist Diego Cardeñosa, who analyzed samples from the seizure, confirmed that this was the first known case where shark fins had been processed within Colombia before export. This signaled a dangerous shift in the illegal wildlife trade. If criminal organizations in Latin America mastered these techniques, it would make law enforcement efforts far more difficult. Processed fins are harder to identify without DNA testing, meaning illegal shipments could pass through customs undetected. Even more troubling was the species identified in the seizure. The shipment contained fins from silky sharks, hammerhead sharks, pelagic thresher sharks, bull sharks, and tiger sharks. All of these species are listed under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, an agreement designed to prevent over-exploitation. The hammerhead shark, in particular, is critically endangered, making its inclusion in the shipment especially concerning. With mounting evidence against him, Rodríguez Mondragón took swift action. Just 2 months after the shark fin seizure, he sold the property where Fernapez had been operating for a mere $15,500. He claimed the company had gone bankrupt due to the controversy, but investigators suspected this was a calculated move to distance himself from further scrutiny. This case underscored the growing intersection between organized crime and environmental exploitation. As drug trafficking routes come under tighter enforcement, criminals are diversifying into other illegal industries, including wildlife smuggling. The involvement of a figure linked to the Cali Cartel raises serious concerns about how deep these connections run. If traffickers are now learning advanced processing techniques and establishing direct trade routes to Asia, the fight against wildlife crime will only become more challenging. Despite Rodríguez Mondragón's insistence that he was not involved, many questions remain. Did he really have no knowledge of what was happening within his own company? Was this just a small-scale operation or part of a much larger criminal network? One thing is clear, this was not just about shark fins. It was about power, corruption, and the shadowy world of international smuggling. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this investigation compelling, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into global crime networks.